Thank you, Ukrainian soldiers. Good evening. Welcome to the inaugural episode of Ukrainian. I am Kim Roback. I am an American, and I am Ukrainian. So I have been deeply concerned and following everything that I can that's going on since late February, and I don't even call this a war at this point because he marched soldiers with no emblems on them into Crimea and said that it didn't happen, but took it, and now he's just marching through Ukraine and occupying territory and committing a genocide. As an American, I am proud of us for what we've been able to send. I am also disappointed in us because I think our current posture is inconsistent with the kind of foreign policy that we have held out as a doctrine that we follow. And I'd like to talk about that in a little bit. But first, okay, so who are these handsome Ukrainian princes behind me? What? You want to know? This fine lad right here is my grandfather. He came here from Ukraine with a little violin, and he was going to get a scholarship, and then a World War II broke out, so boop, he joined the Marines. Not just any part of the Marines either. He joined like a bombardier squad that flew in like flying coffins, shooting people. He was one of the few people who lived, and he would have gone again. He is a brave Ukrainian man, and I love you, Grandpa. Who is this fine-looking Ukrainian man? Oh, yes, that is my dad. I grew up in a house with a father who had a master's in communist studies and worked at the Brookings Institute. So, I thought everyone had little red books. I thought everyone called people paper tigers. Didn't know that was weird. So, yeah, we spent a lot of time growing up talking about Marxism and blah, blah, blah. So, anyway, Tom hopefully will be a guest on our show at some point. And this gentleman over here on the American flag, that is my husband, wearing his very supportive Ukrainian shirt and my pink bike helmet. He is from Texas, so he likes to present kind of like your average American's view because, wow, do we disagree on a lot of things. And it's an interesting kind of canary in the coal mine for me. So, okay, to start, I would like to take everyone back to the year 2003. That is when I first started the horrific practice of law. Not the best at it. But I had a great office mate, Kristen Smith. I love you if you're watching this, and I hope you remember this woman. I worked for a giant Wall Street law firm, and we ran an immigration program. So we helped people who were illegally in the United States get asylum visas. And typically you get an asylum visa in the United States if you are so politically persecuted in your own country that a deportation would be tantamount to a political execution. Those are kind of the rules for when you get deported. She was from Latvia, and she was ethnically Russian. And she told us there was no way she could go back to Latvia. So I remember one day I was sitting talking to her, just trying to understand her story, because again, America, we want everyone. We'll take anyone. Psychos, poor, you read the Statue of Liberty. We'll take it all, right? So she is telling me about the atrocities that have been committed against her, and I kid you not, they added up to being picked on the bus. And I was like, so you're speaking Russian to your friend on the bus, and the other people on the bus call you names or make fun of you, something to that? She's like, yes. Okay, that's not pleasant. I don't like that. My son does it every morning, and then he goes to school. That's to kind of try to avoid somebody who has some kind of semi-automatic rifle with like 100-round mag and not get killed, So part of me wanted to say toughen up, because names in the bus happen, and they are not a cause for It's really not a reason to grant someone asylum. I think she may have gotten it. I can't remember if it's because of when Obama laxed some of those laws, or if it's because my Christians was my office made it happen. But in any event, if that's what's going on, and again, I don't know what's going on in terms of ethnic Russians being treated differently in the various countries that were former Soviet republics. If what's going on is that you're getting made fun of or called a name, I'm gonna have to go ahead and recommend getting a thicker set of skin. That's every day in New York City. Every day I get called names for various reasons. Usually I'm a bitch for something. Who knows? Who can say? So with that, I had a whole day yesterday, and it was a beautiful day. And I hate to say that because my gratitude yesterday for the day was so extreme. I got to spend it with my son's best friend is Russian American, and his mother is Russian from St. Petersburg, and she lives here now. And I got to spend the whole day with her, and she is so smart and so lovely and so wonderful to talk to about this, because I really want to understand what the F Russian people are thinking, right? Like, I know that 50% of this country absolutely believes fake news, Donald Trump is real, everything he says is true, like evidence to the contrary being shoved in front of them. So I'm used to a population that is willing to deny reality because it's more pleasant to believe that Donald Trump has some kind of answers of some sort, or that a good idea, anything presidential, to believe that. So I get that, and I also get that people, it's my understanding everybody gets their news from the television, and that's kind of state controlled, and that life is just easier if you just go along with it. Just say like, yeah, that's true, good, we agree, it's good with her, yes, Kremlin, Putin, yes, good things. So I was asking her a couple of questions about just kind of her experience growing up in St. Petersburg, because she was 10 years old, I think, when the Soviet Union collapsed, and she said it was horrible. It was not a peaceful transition in any way, because they starved. She remembers starving, and she remembers her parents lost all of their money, which she said in a way was a good thing because it's happened several times since then. And so they kind of just get used to it, easy come, easy go. But she said, if you really want to understand what's chapping Putin's ass, like, it's not that. Listen to his 2007 Munich speech, which I think I've heard, maybe never paid enough attention to. So today, for your viewing pleasure, we took a deep dive into his speech-oly. And it's interesting because I wish he could have lived up to a lot of the things he said here. This is, for those of you who don't remember this speech he gave in German in Munich in 2007. He started off by saying, "This is a conference where I can be as rude as I want and speak as clearly as I want about how much I hate America." Right? That was kind of like, that was his intro. And again, Americans, we're fine with it. Dump on us. We don't care. But he wanted to talk about international security, and I thought it was interesting that he had a Franklin Delano Roosevelt quote. He said, "The universal, indivisible character of security is expressed as the basic principle that security for one is security for all. As Franklin D. Roosevelt said during the early days of World War II, when it was breaking out, when peace has been broken anywhere, the peace of all countries everywhere is in danger." Putin, do you hear what you said? And so I think in talking with my friend yesterday, part of what I realized is that he doesn't view Ukraine as a country. He doesn't attribute any sovereignty to it. They call it Little Russia. They think the language is kind of funny. Might as well be Welsh. They don't view Ukraine as having a distinct history or cultural identity. And again, none of those things are actually necessary to have a sovereign land. I'd like to just bring us back a few days to July 4th, when America celebrated Independence Day, right? What the F are we declaring independence from? People who wrote the Magna Carta? Taxes? Yes, taxes. Other things too, but a lot about taxes. And we took it as an opportunity to say to a group of people who were governing us and providing us with a lot of support, in terms of both, fighting against the Native Americans as we stole their land, pushing the British out of territories. We said to them, thank you, we don't want your help. We have a different set of beliefs. We believe different things than you, and the things that we believe are fundamentally different than the constitutional monarchy you have over there. Over here, we believe that all men are born with certain inalienable rights, and those are the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And you don't believe that, so we're out. We are no longer going to be a colony of yours. We are going to be our own country. Okay? And that's a situation where we share a language, we share most of the religion, common law background. We like tea. When we had to throw all the tea in the harbor, we had to start drinking coffee. That's why I like coffee now, right? But we had a different set of beliefs. So we said we are now a sovereign country, right? And it took years. That's what I also wanted to remind everyone. It took years. So you had like Lexington and Concord with the shots heard around the world as Americans. Then years later, we have the signing of the Declaration of Independence, and it's not until I think 1987 that we actually sign the Constitution and get some kind of government going. So there's fighting and fighting and fighting and fighting, and basically like the British people just got tired of paying to have their troops sent all the way across the ocean fighting a war they didn't want to pay for. So yay, we won! Woo! But we did, and we have failed on that promise and that set of values in so many ways, for so long. But America, you are my Ike Turner, and I keep coming back to you because you keep trying. You try. You try. You were like, this is for white men over, at that time, like 18, right? They get some rights. Everyone else, but you come back and you come back and you try some more, and that's what I love about you. So, I would think that Americans would be very highly empathetic to the Ukrainian cause. Because they're working with way better facts about being a sovereign nation. When my son had international night at his elementary school, Ukraine had never had a booth before, so I, of course, being psychotic, was like, we will have the best booth that will interest the most children. So I made a giant poster that celebrated kind of the zaniness of their elections, because I know that they had the silent protest, and then they had the orange protest, and then they had a couple of places where they wrote in votes for Darth Vader and Chewbacca and Padma Amidala. I was like, this is a group of people who enjoy democracy. They actually love it. They're voting. They care. They're going and saying, like, these candidates suck. I'm going to write in Star Wars. I don't think anyone here, I think people here are too lazy to figure out how to do that on a voting machine. And Putin would probably change it anyway, so who the fuck cares, right? They love their democracy. And again, it's nascent. It's not a fully formed situation yet. They happen to have elected one of, I think, the most charismatic, courageous leaders of any time. I don't think the world makes President Vladimir Zelensky's. I listened to him speak in English on these long, stupid interviews, where they ask about like the two Americans who came over to fight, and like, would he like to say thank you to the family? And he is gracious and humble and thankful. And to hear him talk about some of the soldiers from Belarus and from Russia who are fighting his people and killing his people, and to say that he thinks, many of them are troubled, and suffering mentally, and to understand them, I thought, okay, I would like to understand my friend who's not killing anyone, who's not killing me, and she has a point of view, and it's distinctly Russian. So I spent a lot of time talking to her yesterday and reading this speech. So one of the things that she said really was kind of like chapping his ass was that he hates NATO. And she even said, she was like, I don't understand the point of it. I don't understand why there has to be NATO. I think we're living it. I think we're living why we have to have NATO at the moment. And again, I know that he like tried to have a whole bunch of treaties where anyone can sign NATO except former Soviet countries. It's like, well, they're the ones who kind of need the most protection because they don't want to get sucked back into your little czarist empire dream. They're not little Russians. They don't share a common history. They've fought, and that's going to be a different show. All the times Ukraine has tried to establish itself as an independent country, and it's a lot of times. And I have a fun thing where we get to go through Putin's revisionist history. Russia and Ukraine, not really friends, not the same. It's like amazing. So well, that's going to be a different show. So, but here, going through again his Munich speech, one of the things he is pissed about, he says, did not our country have a peaceful transition to democracy? I asked my friend, and she said, oh no, we did not. She said in St. Petersburg they starved. A lot of people starved to death, and everyone lost all their money, and it was a dark time. He then goes on to say, indeed, we witnessed a peaceful transformation of the Soviet regime. A peaceful transformation, exclamation point. And what a regime, exclamation point. With what a number of weapons, including nuclear weapons, exclamation point. Why should we start bombing and shooting now at every available opportunity? Is it the case that without the threat of mutual destruction, we do not have enough political culture, respect for democratic values, and for the law? Are you serious, sir? I think your whatever your new KGB is called blew up those apartments in Moscow and blamed Chechen rebels, and that you were going to do it again. Well, I don't know if you have respect for your own laws, never mind international ones. You then say, I am convinced that the only mechanism that can make decisions about using military force as a last resort is, and listen loudly, the Charter to the United Nations. Okay. I understood that the use of force can only be legitimate when the decision is taken by NATO and the EU or the UN. He is basically saying no EU, no NATO, just UN. And guess what? He got what he wanted. And here in Germany, I cannot help but mention the pitiable condition of the Treaty of Conventional Armed Forces in Europe. He's complaining. Here we go. This is my favorite part. Ready? And what happened to the assurances our Western partners made after the dissolution of the Warsaw Pact? Where are those declarations today? No one even remembers them. But I allow myself to remind this audience what was said. I would like to quote the speech of NATO General Secretary Mr. Warner in Brussels on the 17th of May 1990. He said at that time, and I quote, the fact that we are ready not to place a NATO army outside of Germany territory gives the Soviet Union a firm security guarantee. Where are these guarantees? Okay, now we're going to go to the real speech and see what was actually said, because it wasn't that. And it's fun because not only do we have the speech and we can find the language in it, but also our good friend here, Mr. Gorbachev, came and spoke to the folks at Brookings and said he's taken that out of context. That is not what the conversation was about at all. So just going to the speech very quickly. Here it is from 1990, and the language here is actually sorry. 1 second. Here we go. Okay. He says, we have to find solutions that respect the legitimate security interests of all participants, including the Soviet Union. I emphasize all participants. In other words, not only the Soviet Union. That nation has a right to expect that German unification and Germany's membership of the Atlantic Alliance will not prejudice its security. But it is also clear that it cannot expect us to put NATO's existence on the line and thus give it something that it never succeeded in obtaining in the past, even at the height of its power. The West cannot respond to the erosion of the Warsaw Pact with the weakening or even dissolution of the Atlantic Alliance. The only response is to establish a security framework that embraces both alliances. Sounds different to me. Does it sound different to you? I don't know if he thinks he has some kind of photographic memory or steel trap, and that he hears things perfectly and remembers them for years. I forget things probably that I said 5 minutes ago, and if I don't write them down, it's gone. That's why I print so much crap today. I killed a lot of trees to try to make a show. So now I would like to turn everyone's attention to my favorite document of the day. Because if you'll recall, Mr. Putin, you said something like, the only thing that I want to listen to is the Charter of the United Nations. That's it. That's the only one. Okay, right? So, that's a little Star Wars for you there, Ukraine. Okay. This is the treaty between Ukraine and the Russian Federation on the Ukrainian-Russian state border. And Ukraine and the Russian Federation, hereinafter referred to as the contracting parties, guided by the aims and principles of the Charter of the United Nations, as well as by the provisions of the Helsinki Final Act, based on the provisions of the Treaty on Friendship, Cooperation and Partnership between Ukraine and the Russian Federation of May 31st, 1997, acting out of the need to settle questions involving the course of the state boundary line for the purpose of further strengthening friendly, good neighbor relations between the peoples of Ukraine and Russia. And then they agree as follows. And then we have a lot of agreements. And then we have pages and pages of somebody doing, I don't know what you call it when you have somebody do an inspection with those site visit things where it's every line is mapped out 30 degrees this way across this river and pages, a whole book with maps. And then the little people with the scope things that determine if you're on your neighbor's property with your car, right? All of it done, all of it signed, and effective, I believe, 2004. So my friend had said that she thinks that one of the things that has kind of rubbed Russians the wrong way, and Putin the wrong way in particular, is that following the disaster that was Yeltsin and the collapse of the Soviet Union, she feels like Russians feel like things got taken away from them. Georgia, Ukraine, apparently Alaska. So, this is kind of his big grandstand to try to bring back this imperial Russia. And my friend said that she didn't have such a problem with, she thinks the killing in Ukraine is terrible. She says that, but she says she doesn't think that they're fighting for democracy. She thinks they're fighting for nationalism, and she thinks that's the big problem. First of all, I think if anyone in the world right now has the right to be nationalistic, I would say it would be Ukrainians. And I think that when they are eventually left the fuck alone, they're going to run some awesome elections. And I know they had lots of corruption issues. I know that was the whole point of President Zelensky's television show, and they have oligarchs, but I feel like when he said the West is going to force us to fight to the last Ukrainian, I've cried so many times to my husband saying, they're going to kill everyone. It's all going to be gone. And I'm thankful for all of the refugees who are displaced and struggling to survive and be happy where they are. And hopefully maybe that everyone will come back. But, and I've heard news commenters say things about the tragedy of losing so many talented, bright young men who would kind of be the next wave of kind of entrepreneurial spirits and talent and funny people with a funny comedy troupe making everybody laugh. They're all dying. I think this needs to be a faster war. And that brings me to my final point in this show, and then I promise it will be over, thankfully, mercifully, and you can turn this off if you're even watching, and I know you're not, anyone. But I like to just revisit what we did in Kuwait, because there are a lot of parallels there, and I think when you look at it, it's kind of disgusting to see the way U.S. foreign policy changes, and I really wish Boris Yeltsin, hey, if you're out of a job, I'm out of a job, let's hang out. Love your hair, love your spirit, love your politics. I read about how we got involved in the Gulf War. I remember it because I remember being in elementary school thinking, oh God, it's going to be World War II. And also, I grew up in New York in the 80s, and I literally every day thought that we were going to be incinerated by nuclear weapons from the Soviet Union. So this was kind of a new fear to add on to my fear, the fear medley that runs in my head constantly. We were going to start a war in Kuwait. And why? Why would we start a war in Kuwait? The answer I got then and now, and believe it is because of oil, right? That is why. But what we said was, Kuwait is a sovereign nation. Kuwait is entitled to its sovereignty. We're going to sign an agreement with you that says we are going to help you because the Iraqi Republican Guard is moving into your sovereign land. And there were complications with Saudi Arabia, and basically I know we didn't want to have another 1970s oil crisis, so we decided that under the guise of we care about sovereignty, we went and kicked a lot of ass, a lot. The Gulf War lasted 6 weeks. Storm and Norman Schwarzkopf and General Colin Powell, they're Vietnam guys, and they learned a lesson there, and the lesson was figure out how much it's going to take to beat your enemy and then bring 500 times more than you need, and that's how you run a war. I, for your benefit, would just like to go through the list of shit that we brought and used to fight the Iraqi war. I apologize if it bores you, but we had M17 gas masks. Here come the infantry weapons. M14 rifles, M16A1s, M16A2s, CAR-15s, M60 machine guns, M3 submachine guns, Heckler & Koch MP5s, M249s, M240s, M130 miniguns, M9 pistols, P226 pistols, M1911 pistols, Barnett, MB2s, Macmillan, M87s, M24 sniper weapon system, M21 sniper weapon system, M40 sniper rifle, M67 shotgun, M2 HB, blah blah blah. Okay, a lot more infantry, but that's not what we're interested in because we're fighting an artillery war, right? So let's get to the artillery. Okay, here are the main battle tanks. We had M1 Abrams with a 105mm cannon type, M1A1 Abrams, M1A1AH Abrams heavy armor, M60 Paulton Rise passive. M60A3 Patton TTS. Then we have armored fighting vehicles. I will not bore you with this, but like, it's a shit ton of tanks and other such shit. Let's get to, here we go. Self-propelled artillery mortars, rockets, missiles. Ready? LAV-M Light Armored Vehicle Mortar, USMC. M106A2 Self-propelled mortar carrier. M109A2/A3/A4 155mm self-propelled howitzer. M110A2 8-inch self-propelled howitzer. M270 multiple launch rocket system. You guys are liking those, right? Apparently we made a fuckload. I went to Lockheed Martin's website today. They're cranking them out. I went through their, was it their 10K today? They're doing great. It sounds, this whole thing about how like, oh, we're depleting America's weapons supply. Can we not make more? And the whole thing about we can't source the materials. It's like, okay, Russia can't source them either, so why don't we all get in our creative thinking hats and make them with other shit? I don't know if it's possible, but like, again, the Lockheed Martin website makes it suggest that they are sustainable and recreatable, so why don't we live up to that? Okay, so the multiple launch rocket systems, MGM-140 ATACMS. Then we have all the anti-aircraft, okay? The Vulcan Air Defense System. The self-propelled SAM, surface-to-air missile launcher. Humvees, Vulcan Air Defense System, SAM launcher. Man-portable surface-to-air missile system, SAM launcher. LAV-AD, light armored vehicle, air defense. Here we go. M102, 105mm towed howitzer. M198, 155mm towed howitzer. M56, MICLIC, mine clearing line charge, towed. M224, 60mm lightweight mortar. M252, 81mm medium weight mortar. M30, 107mm heavyweight mortar. Okay, then we get to the engineering and recovery vehicles. So there's kind of all our, like, let's pick up anybody who's wounded from, like, the hell that we have just rained down upon the Gulf. Command vehicles, other vehicles. This list keeps going, and it is very, very long. Okay? I'm trying to spare you how long it is. There's 8 billion different kinds of Black Hawks, helicopters, all over the place. Sikorsky everythings. Airplanes. Everything. All kinds of airplanes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. At least 24 different types. And we're still going because we haven't gotten to like the frigates and the battleship carriers and all this other crap. Yes. Okay. Spacecraft we brought to the Gulf. Ready? Defense Support Program, Defense Satellite Communication System, Defense Meteorological Satellite Program, GPS Satellite Blocks, Small Lightweight GPS Receiver, DMSP Rapid Deployment Imaging Terminal. Aircraft carriers, Midway class, USS Midway, USS Saratoga, USS Ranger. Kitty Hawk class, USS America, USS John F. Kennedy. Nimitz class, USS Theodore Roosevelt. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 aircraft carriers. Battleships. Iowa class, USS Missouri, USS Wisconsin. Submarines. Los Angeles class, USS Chicago, USS Louisville. Amphibious assault ships. Tarawa class, USS Tarawa, USS Nassau. Iwo Jima class, USS Iwo Jima, USS Guam, USS Tripoli, USS New Orleans. Okay, then we have guided missile cruisers. Leahy class, USS Warden, USS England, USS Richmond K. Turner. Belknap class, USS Home, USS Biddle. Ticonderoga class, USS Valley Forge, USS Tom Gates, USS Bunker Hill, USS Mobile Bay, USS... Are you fucking kidding me? We brought all of this to defend Kuwait. Okay? And the reason we said we were defending Kuwait was because Kuwait was a sovereign country and it was being invaded by a dictator, the Butcher of Baghdad, a bad guy. And we as America don't put up with that, right? I guess it's we don't put up with it if you don't have we'll deal with it if you don't have oil and if your bad guy has nuclear weapons, because then we're gonna run scared and we're not gonna give you everything you need and we're not gonna give you everything we have and we're not gonna do everything we can. And I think I on July 4th I thought, George Washington, on I guess July 4th 1777, I think of him all the time, like for odd reasons, being so alone, with his troops eating their own horses in Valley Forge and freezing to death and like gnawing off their own legs and shit. And to celebrate, everyone else is blowing shit up and cannons and rockets and he gave his men an extra serving of rum. And I think of how alone he must have felt, because we weren't a country yet, and we didn't have a culture to stand on. We were at best an unarmed experiment. Again, Lin Miranda, he does a great job. Hamilton, watch it when you get a chance because it'll explain it all. Yay for revolution. We did a great job. Beat them. Yay, George Washington. But just thinking about how much responsibility was placed on this guy. He fought this whole war. He won it. And then they said to him, okay, you're going to be the first president. And when they asked him what he wanted to be called, Your Excellency, Your Eminence, Your Wonderfulness, he said, how about Mr. President? And at the end of his second term, he said, even though people wanted him to stay, they wanted him to stay, he said, no, I have to go. This has to be the system. We have to have a transition of power. It can't be 20 years of Putin unelected over and over again. So Mr. Zelensky, President Zelensky, I think of you often, how much is on your shoulders and how lonely that might be. And I hope you know that there are so many of us in the United States who are trying to support you and trying to support Ukraine. Because this is the right side of history. I was talking my Russian friend yesterday. I asked her, I was like, there's only been one the terrible, right? You guys like to call people the greats, the terrible, right? She's like, yes, there was one the terrible, and it was Ivan. And she said he was really terrible. He killed his son. He had the architect of the big dome cathedral. They poured, iron in his eyes so he could never design one again. And I was like, if those are his crimes, it's like, I think Putin's got him by a lot. So, is he going to be Putin the terrible? Could that be? Could he be the second the terrible? Or can this get turned around? Like, is there room for, like, an actual conversation? Like, you said this is what you meant, this is what you want. Can we make that happen? If NATO is so threatening, can we talk about why? The fact that you don't want any former Soviet republics to be allowed to ever join it suggests that you want to invade all of them. Do you? Is that what's going on? My last thought for today is about, I guess this nonsense about Alaska came up because of the pissiness about the $330 billion in frozen assets, right? They're like, oh, you'll start spending our assets, we're going to take Alaska from you. And so I looked into it because, people keep saying, why don't we use it? And, part of it is, the problem is that the U.S., at least with the suspension of their SWIFT account and freezing whatever we could get our hands on, both in terms of currency, gold, yachts, we did that under IEPA. And under IEPA, that particular law does not allow us to unblock the frozen assets for any use. So my question to you, U.S. government, OFAC, U.S. Treasury Department, why the F are we not invoking the Patriot Act? I know you're going to tell me that They have not directly attacked Americans, and I would submit to you that they hacked our election, that there are Americans over in Ukraine fighting for freedom and democracy, and I believe that they've been captured by Russian troops. They're I don't know if you need a Pearl Harbor. I don't know what it is you need. I feel like you guys Patriot Act for way less shit, so I would suggest go figure that out and unfreeze that money so that I listened to an interview with I think it was a former Russian ambassador to the UK, maybe, do an interview with a very wonderful reporter Dolly from the BBC on Ukrainecast, and I love that show. And he was trying to ask him about Mariupol, and of course he was cut off, and the gentleman said, Don't worry about Mariupol. Don't worry about Mariupol. We have a whole plan. We're going to rebuild Mariupol. That's great. You ruined it, so you should. But it's actually, it's not your town to rebuild. Don't want your style, don't want your statues, don't want your crap. I think Ukrainians should be allowed to rebuild their cities the way they want to. And right now we have $330 billion in assets sitting frozen. And again, based on our crappy distinction laws, IEPA versus Patriot Act, and have you actually attacked us, blah, blah, blah. I don't know. I would figure out a way to use it. Because this goading us into a nuclear war, I don't see it happening. So I think we might need to get creative about how we pull some levers here. So with that thought, I am going to play some more Ukrainian soldiers singing Ukrainian songs. I am going to say incredibly not well, Slava Ukraini. Don't know if that's right. I know Nancy Pelosi was like butchering the crap out of it, so I'm trying really hard. I am teaching myself Ukrainian because I hate the fact, just so you know, I am not as stupid of an American as I seem, which is quite stupid. I studied Japanese for a very long time, so Nihongo ga hanashimasu. That was my language I learned, and French. I learned French in elementary school, and my husband and I speak French all the time because we are trying to get my son to care about learning about another country. But Ukrainian, I'm working on you. I will have something better for you the next time because I'm practicing with my little MP3 things. Okay, with that, I would love to say good night, be safe, and glory to Ukraine, glory to our soldiers. Thank you.